In the quiet, unassuming town of Beatrice, Nebraska, life often moved with a gentle and predictable rhythm. The year was 1950. Winters were crisp, summers were warm, and the community found its heartbeat in simple, shared traditions. One of the most steadfast of these traditions was the Wednesday evening choir practice at the West Side Baptist Church. Every week, like clockwork, the dedicated members of the choir would gather. Their voices were the soul of the Sunday service. The practice was scheduled to begin promptly at 7:25 p.m. The Reverend Walter Klempel was a man who appreciated punctuality, and his choir members rarely, if ever, disappointed him. The choir was a small but devoted group of 15 souls. They were more than just singers. They were family. They shared stories, supported one another through hardships, and celebrated life's small victories together within the church's welcoming walls. The choirmaster, Martha Paul, was known for her precision. She expected everyone to be in their seats, music open, ready to sing by 7:25 p.m. sharp. The church organist, her mother, was equally diligent. This routine was a comforting constant in their lives. It was as reliable as the setting sun. No one had any reason to believe that the evening of Wednesday, 1st March 1950, would be any different. Punctuality was not merely a suggestion, it was an unspoken rule, a sign of respect for their shared purpose and for each other. The Reverend himself would arrive early to ensure the church was warm, turning on the furnace well before the choir's arrival. On this particular evening, he had done just that, lighting the furnace before heading home for his dinner. He planned to return with his wife and daughter, who was a choir member herself. The members knew the schedule intimately. They planned their evenings around this sacred commitment. It was a cornerstone of their weekly existence, a testament to their unwavering faith and dedication. The town of Beatrice carried on with its usual Wednesday activities. Families finished their evening meals. Children completed their homework. The world outside the church walls was blissfully unaware of the strange series of events quietly unfolding. Each of the 15 choir members, in their separate homes, was about to encounter a small, seemingly insignificant disruption. These tiny, unrelated moments would conspire to break a pattern of perfect attendance. A pattern that had been held for years was, on this one fateful night, about to be shattered by a string of bizarre and life-saving delays. The West Side Baptist Church was not a grand cathedral. It was a humble wooden structure, but it was the spiritual heart of its congregation. For the people of Beatrice, it was far more than just a building made of timber and nails. It was a place of immense comfort and gathering. Within its walls, babies were christened, couples were married, and loved ones were mourned. The church stood as a silent witness to the full spectrum of human experience. It was a sanctuary where faith was nurtured, friendships were forged, and the community came together as one, bound by shared beliefs and a deep sense of belonging. The building itself had a history. It had stood for decades, weathering storms and seasons, its simple pews worn smooth by generations of worshippers. The stained glass windows, though modest, cast colourful patterns of light across the nave on sunny Sunday mornings. The scent of old wood, hymn books, and beeswax candles filled the air, a familiar aroma that meant peace and solace to all who entered. For the choir members, the church was a second home. It was the place where their voices blended in harmony, creating something beautiful that was greater than the sum of its parts. This was their sacred space. Every corner of the church held a memory. The creak of a specific floorboard, the echo of the organ in the empty hall, the way the light fell on the altar. These were the details that made it beloved. The community had invested its time, its money, and its heart into maintaining the building. It was a physical representation of their collective faith. To lose it would be like losing a cherished member of the family. The church was a symbol of stability and hope in an often uncertain world, a constant presence in the lives of the townspeople. The choir practice was a vital part of this ecosystem. It was not just a rehearsal, it was an act of worship and fellowship. The music they prepared was the offering they brought to the Sunday service, a gift for the entire congregation. The commitment of the 15 members was a testament to the church's importance. They were the guardians of its musical tradition. Their weekly gathering was a ritual that reaffirmed their connection to the church, to their faith, and to one another. The building was the vessel, but they were its living, breathing soul. On that chilly March evening, a strange and wonderful symphony of tardiness began to play out across Beatrice. Each of the 15 choir members, who were normally so prompt, found themselves delayed by a unique and trivial circumstance. Not one, not two, but all 15 were running late. LaDonna Vandergrift, a high school student, was engrossed in a geometry problem. She was determined to solve it before leaving for the church, losing track of time in her focused state. Normally, her homework would have been finished long before, but this one equation stubbornly resisted her efforts, holding her captive at her desk. Elsewhere in town, Royana and Sadie Estes were waiting for their car to start. The vehicle, usually reliable, simply refused to turn over. They tried the ignition again and again, but the engine remained stubbornly silent. This mechanical failure was completely out of the ordinary, forcing the two sisters to wait, frustrated and perplexed. Meanwhile, the choirmaster, Martha Paul, had an unexpected visitor. A friend had stopped by for a chat, and the conversation lingered longer than anticipated. Politeness dictated she could not simply rush her guest out of the door, and so the minutes ticked by. Another member, Marilyn Paul, had planned to arrive early with her mother, Martha. However, she fell asleep after dinner. Her mother, not wanting to wake her, let her rest for just a few extra moments. Those moments proved to be crucial. Herbert Kipf, a lumberyard worker, was delayed by a pressing letter he needed to post. The matter was urgent, and he made a last-minute decision to finish it before heading to practice. Lucy Wing was held up by a radio program. She couldn't bear to miss the end of the final dramatic minutes of This Is Your Life, had her utterly captivated. Even the Reverend Klempel and his family were late. His wife was getting ready when she noticed a small stain on their daughter's dress. She insisted on changing it, a small act of maternal care that added precious minutes to their departure time. From a stubborn car to a captivating radio show, from a difficult homework problem to a sleepy teenager, each delay was a tiny, isolated incident. None of the choir members knew of the other's tardiness. They were all simply running behind schedule, unaware that these mundane hold-ups were weaving a collective tapestry of miraculous protection. The church stood silent and empty, bathed in the soft glow of the evening. The furnace, lit earlier by the Reverend, continued to run in the basement. Unbeknownst to anyone, a leak had developed. Gas was slowly, steadily filling the space, turning the beloved sanctuary into an unwitting time bomb. The clock on the church tower crept past the usual start time for practice. 7:25 p.m. came and went. In any other week, the church would have been filled with the harmonious sounds of 15 singers warming up their voices. But on this night, there was only an eerie, expectant quiet. At precisely 7:27 p.m., the accumulated gas in the basement found a spark from the furnace's pilot light. The resulting explosion was catastrophic. A deafening roar shattered the peace of the Nebraska night, a sound so powerful it was heard for miles around. The wooden walls of the Westside Baptist Church were blown outwards with incredible force. The roof was lifted clean off its foundations before crashing down into the nave. The building imploded, collapsing into a heap of splintered timber, shattered glass and rubble. Where a church had stood just moments before, there was now only devastation. The blast shook the entire town of Beatrice. Residents rushed from their homes, their hearts pounding, to see a plume of smoke and dust rising into the sky. The first thought on everyone's mind was the choir. It was Wednesday night. It was past 7:25 p.m. They had to be inside. A wave of dread and horror washed over the community as they imagined the terrible fate of their friends and neighbors. The fire chief, arriving at the scene, prepared for the grim task of recovering bodies from the wreckage. The assumption was absolute. There could be no survivors from such a powerful explosion. But then the miracle began to reveal itself. As worried family members and friends gathered near the smoldering ruins, a strange and wonderful thing happened. One by one, the choir members began to arrive. LaDonna Vandergrift, having finally solved her geometry problem. The Estes sisters, whose car had eventually started. Martha Paul, her visitor having just left. Each of them approached the scene, breathless and confused, to find their church utterly destroyed. The initial shock at the devastation was quickly replaced by a stunning realization. They were all there. They were all safe. Not a single one of them had been inside. The immediate aftermath was a scene of profound astonishment. The 15 choir members stood together, staring at the ruins of their sacred space, their minds struggling to comprehend what had happened. There was the initial terror of what could have been, a chilling vision of their own fate had they been on time. This was swiftly followed by an overwhelming sense of relief and gratitude that was almost too powerful to articulate. Why had they all been late? How could a series of such mundane, unrelated events have conspired to save every single one of them? The questions hung in the smoke-filled air. For the people of Beatrice, and especially for the choir, the event was nothing short of a miracle. They saw the hand of God in their collective tardiness. It seemed impossible to explain it any other way. The sheer improbability of 15 famously punctual people all being delayed on the same night at the same time pointed towards divine intervention. The story quickly spread, first through the town, then across the state, and eventually around the world. It was a tale of wonder, a testament to the mysterious ways in which faith and fate can intertwine. The choir members felt they had been given a second chance at life. Of course, there were those who sought a more rational explanation. They called it a case of extraordinary coincidence, a one-in-a-million statistical anomaly. They pointed out that small delays are a part of life, and that on this particular night they just happened to align perfectly. But even for the most skeptical, the story of the Westside Baptist Church Choir holds a certain power. It challenges our understanding of probability and chance. Whether one calls it a miracle or a coincidence, the event remains a source of profound awe and fascination. It is a story that defies easy explanation. The legacy of that March evening in 1950 endures to this day. It is told and retold as a powerful narrative of hope and mystery. The church was rebuilt, but the memory of the explosion and the miraculous survival of its choir became a permanent part of its identity. The story serves as a reminder that sometimes the most insignificant moments, a tricky maths problem, a sleepy child, a stubborn car engine, can have the most profound consequences. It asks us to consider the fine, invisible threads that may connect our lives and to find wonder in the inexplicable. It is a true story that feels more like a parable, a timeless tale of chance, fate, or perhaps grace.